few months ago, Musk spoke about the stylistic stagnation on a podcast and advocated a need for a change. But you also said if that change looks anything like the Cybertruck, you can count me out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I when I think about like sometimes we're stuck, and I think he is in some ways. Like we have a 20th century view of what the future should look like. Like I remember like the iWatch or whatever they call it. Like that's Dick Tracy. Like that's like a retro version of something that people would need. The Cybertruck to me looks like something that you would in 1985 would have thought 2026 looked like. It's just to me it looks ridiculous. I mean, it was really just a throwaway comment, to be honest with you. But yeah, I mean, he sees it as a problem. I don't know why it's a problem. I just think it's a curiosity. I don't understand why it's happening, or trying to understand why it's happening. And so, some of the theories that I put forth were the first one being a derivative loop, which a lot of these are technology related. With the invention of the iPhone, we've become, an apps driving everything that we do, and social media then becoming such a big part of that, and image, and we're just not looking outward anymore. We're looking either downward, and we have these very curated, people curate their image and their style, and something that like, you don't get a lot of outliers in that way. There's no like free thinking. It becomes more of a herd. And I think that's part of it. The second theory I had was around the aversion to the mean, which is the 20th century being a complete outlier in society. And that because of mass media that emerged in the first half of the century, with radio and then television, especially with the movies, you see a progression where you have the world converging, and all of these aesthetics that come together and are experimented with, and then you have something like the 1960s, which is an outlier even outside within the 20th century, which I put the photo of the Beatles that they recreated. The first was shot in 1963, and the second was shot in 1969, and it looks like they lived on another planet during the middle part of that decade. You can't imagine that kind of aesthetic evolution happening now. It just simply doesn't happen. I think the pandemic was another thing that has made, especially in the last 6 years, it doesn't explain the last 15 or so, but it certainly is, comfort wear is like the thing, and how much kind of deviation can you have from that? I think that has something to do with it. And then the other thing that I acknowledge, and my daughter certainly, because she was like, 2012 was a very 2012 show. I think as you get older, you're less, your time span increases. So if you're, say, like my daughter's age, she's 25, she has, a hypersensitivity to time span. Much like I would say we did in the 1980s. I entered 1980 a 7-year-old and left at a 17-year-old. I mean, so you're hyper focused on the early 80s. I remember watching the Goldbergs and I'd get annoyed because I'm like, you can't mix a 1982 thing with a 1989 thing. I mean, it's but they would just kind of put it all together. So I think that's at play, and obviously I'm over on the other side of 50, so it's I'm not trendy. I never was trendy, but and that's part of it. The aesthetic, it doesn't explain away the last 10, 15 years of just utter stagnation of the aesthetic, and it's interesting.